When we compare those workable ethical theories, um, these are the steps we take when faced with a moral problem. What is the motivation for taking a particular action? And what criteria are used to determine if an action is ethical or unethical? Are we based on rules or actions? And is the focus on the individual or on the group? That's how we compare them. I mean, usually that's how we select them as well. As you see, you can mark them based on those questions exercise on your own, but in the end, when you fill this table, you will end up with this. You see, Kantianism is based on dutifulness, and the criteria are rules. As you see, social contract is based on human rights and also have rules as well. Here in Kantianism, the focus is on the individual, social contract theory as well, on the individual. However, in rule utilitarianism, you focus on the consequence and duty at the same time. Again, there are rules here, but the focus is on the group, the society, the group affected here in the society. And in the act utilitarianism, again, you focused on the consequence. And this time, look, criteria is different here. Only the actions, or not the rules, but actions here. And the focus is on the group as well. These are the comparison between workable ethical theories. Again, what makes, these are taken from the textbook, what makes an action morally right? It results in an increase in the total good of the affected parties. What is it? You can decide. And it is in accord with the correct moral rule, you see. It is based on a rule here. And then comes the other step. What makes this rule correct? We can imagine everyone following this rule all the time without producing a logical contradiction that undermines the rule. You see, this is Kantianism. And the effect of everyone following this rule will all the time would be the greatest increase in the total good. You see, rule utilitarianism here. And rational people would collectively accept it as binding because of the resulting benefits to the community. You see here social contract theory, and as you can see, this is act utilitarianism. That's the idea. Okay, so this is how to make the distinction between them. There is a morality of breaking the law as well, because what is moral may not be what is legal. We discussed this before, we introduced this before as well. Both possible. Wrong action can be legal and right actions can be illegal. So, if we return to copying copyrighted music, for example, if you analyze this from social contract theory perspective, it is against the laws. It's because it's violating legal rights and the rights of the copyright owners. So you can conclude that it is wrong. And in Kant, for example, of course I'm analyzing them pretty quickly now because the details are given in the text. You can refer to textbook if you like to see the details. In the Kant's approach, I may ignore a law that I believe unjust. When you universalize this, it means that you're using it as a means to an end. In rule utilitarian perspective, you need to calculate the benefits and negative sides of a copyright society here. Again, lawless will be harmful, and because there will not be any respect for laws, you can conclude that it is wrong. And act utilitarianism analysis may come up with some rare cases where this behavior, breaking the law, can be right action. This example is again given from the text. Suppose that you have a poor friend who had an automobile accident. He likes music and he gets help from the charities or something. He doesn't have enough money to buy the favorite band's album or something. So you copy the file, you give to your friend. There is no lost sale because he will not be able to buy it anyway. He also can recommend it to other people for sale. No extra cost on illegality, only copyright owners. So maybe in this case, in this extreme rare case, benefit can be more than cost, and you can go ahead and say that this is right in this situation. However, copying copyrighted music is immoral because it is illegal in current situation. Most of the problem is occurring from this illegality issue of today. However, we see that a blanket prohibition against copying copyrighted music cannot be morally justified from an act utilitarian point of view in many specific cases. You can just extend those extreme cases to many other specific cases as well. This has been pretty similar for copying some game software, some utility softwares as well. That's why new mechanisms had to be invented, because there were no clear ethical violations in such actions. The people who obey all other laws were still copying or relying on piracy software. That's why the pay-per-view or Steam platform, where you can have access to computer games at decent prices, relatively decent, and the freemium and in-app purchases methods, and also some music platforms like Spotify and iTunes Music maybe help you reach to copyrighted music with decent amounts of money, or Netflix may be one of them. So there are alternative versions for better platform who doesn't need any breaking of laws with respect to ethical considerations. Now, let's also talk about analogical reasoning and computer ethics. It is useful in the case of ethical dilemmas, and you can analyze such situations with their similar occurrences in the absence of that specific technology, then examine whether the absence of this technology makes any difference. So, faced with a problem, just go back in the past where before this technology has been invented and compare it with a scenario from there. It helps us to visualize and make it more clear when we are deeply immersed in the technology being discussed. For example, hackers unauthorized access to files, and the second example, hackers unauthorized access to files again, but for practice this time. It doesn't access to files, but just hacks the system for practice this time. Does that make any difference? In the first example, he is doing it for discovering the files, and in the second example, he's doing it for practice. Do you think ethically anything different here? Analogical reasoning can help. There is a powerful criticism here done by Eugene Spafford in 1992, spreading a computer virus on the internet for the sake of testing looks like what? Look at this analogy here and how it's useful. Setting fire in a shopping mall for the sake of testing fire protection system. If you make an analogy like this, it becomes more understandable when you are immersed in discussing the current technology. Maybe you might get a bit fuzzy if you're too immersed in the discussed technology. Analogical reasoning helps to simplify and helps to look at the different aspects of that discussion. That's the idea. And let's also introduce the idea of virtue ethics, which is quite popular now. It focuses on what is a good person and what are the virtues associated with being a good person. It goes back to, again, way back in time, goes back to Plato and Aristotle, okay? They all discussed this. What are the properties of a good person? Courage, benevolence, generosity, honesty, tolerance, self-control, and so on. You can name many properties of people. For example, if courage is okay, then there should be a consensus on the definition of courage or answer to the question, what is courage? There should be a consensus on it. Somewhat similar to sorting out conceptual models in the standard account, maybe you remember from the previous session. We're trying to agree on a definition here. If you can agree on the definition here, if there is an agreement on the set of virtues, then these will be characters we will try to develop in ourselves and in our children in future. That's the idea. It's very useful approach, but I didn't discuss this in detail before in the workable ethical theories because agreements are not easy. But if we could agree, it would help us a lot. And so we can put virtue ethics right here. Consequentialism focuses on the consequences of actions. Deontology focuses on the duties. And also we have social contract theory here. It's based on the rules and covenants between people. And the virtue ethics focuses on the character of people. You can put it here, but it is a relatively new area. And if you extend this character from human to computer professionals, be careful, it's very useful. If we can find some characteristic properties of computer professionals that could be unique, that could be, let's say, if such properties are required for being a computer professional, then we can also use virtue ethics for our profession as well. It's very useful if we can have an agreement on this. We will discuss this much more in the 8th session, Professional Ethics in Computing session. Don't worry, we will discuss this a lot and see if there is a hope or how close we are from that. So this chapter summarizes and introduces you with a toolbox of ethical theories. We just first saw the not workable or not practical ethical theories, but which we didn't use because they are not rational, like the relativism, subjective relativism, cultural relativism, and divine command theory, and what was the last one? And the last one was the optimizing your own good. Okay, we didn't use them, but we ended up with 4 rational ethical theories, namely Kantianism, utilitarianism, 2 versions of it, act and rule, and social contract theory. These are our toolboxes when faced with a problem that we can use. Okay, that's it. Suppose that you're trying to fix a problem in your home. You need sometimes a hammer. Sometimes some problems require a hammer. Suppose that you're trying to put a painting on the wall. Okay, so you need a nail and a hammer for just putting the nail into the wall. That's it. I mean, so you need Kant for this, for example. Otherwise, if you have instead of the hammer, you have, for example, social contract theory, let's say a jigsaw on your hand, it will not help you to fix that problem, right? So you can consider that these are a toolbox of ethical theories, help you to fix particular situations, particular cases happening in particular situations. So that's how you analyze them. And Terry Vinograd's quote is very nice here. Doing ethics is doing the right thing in a very limited time. It's like this. You see your tools here, and you do this in a few seconds. Sometimes you need to decide in a few seconds, in a few minutes, and in a few hours, for example. Rarely you will have more than that. It means that doing ethics is deciding on the tool and reaching up a conclusion in a very limited time. Now here is an exercise for you to discuss. It is tightly related to the web-based learning we're experiencing for now. I mean, distance, we're having some online exams, and there has been a lot of different thoughts about it. Suppose that in a history class given from internet, let's say there's a quiz on the web and it has some guidelines. You should submit your homework. It will be an open notes and book exam, and at least 8% success is required to pass the quiz. If you're not successful, you can retake the quiz. Okay. Suppose that Mary and John are sitting next to each other in the computer lab. Or suppose that they're communicating with a social media platform like WhatsApp or Telegram, whatever. John asks Mary's help. What is the difference if you tell me the answer? Okay, he defends himself like this. I look it up in the book, or I find out from the computer that my answer is wrong, and I retake the quiz. I try again and again. In any case, I will either look from the book to the answer, or I will try again and get the correct. In any case, I will end up getting the credit for the right answer, right? So why not tell me, Mary, the answer to these questions? Why not help me? It will not make any difference. I will not learn anyway. Mary thinks about it and tells John the correct answer. So here you need to discuss the morality of Mary's decision. Did Mary do right or wrong? And you cannot simply say right or wrong and that's it. And you should tell why she did wrong and why she did right. This is how we analyze it. Be careful. You shouldn't analyze John's behavior here. Be careful, not John. Discuss the morality of Mary's decision to tell John the answer, okay? We will not be evaluating John's behavior that he is asking Mary's help. We're not evaluating that. We will just discussing the morality of Mary's decision. That's the idea. You can think about it or make an exercise about it yourselves. It might be helpful for you. Okay, thank you. Here are the references that we took our examples. We used this and this textbook, and I relied on Google Images a lot, and I use Wikipedia for many detailed texts.